I came once, one time, I don't remember exactly when, I have to say, here to speak about, I can imagine, the library one more time, but there is a very important difference between that moment, I think it was in 27, maybe 17 or 16. So it was the very beginning of my presidency of the National Library. And then there is a very important difference is that this room is now open to everyone. And it was not the case in 2016. At that moment, it was the beginning of a les travaux, works in that very room, the salle ovale. It was the beginning of a second part of the works in the historical place site of the library, and now everything is open. So it's something very new, and I think that we will speak about that. So I have to check what is on this. No, how to change. It's
Laurence, we have a team here, so it's
you.
you don't even have to do anything. You just
Thank you.
wave your hand and it's done. It's magic in this place.
So here is one more time Richelieu, but if we can go to the side afterwards, it's a way to come back to the history. The National Library is known to be the most ancient historical institution in France for the culture. And so we used to begin our story with Charles V, so in 14th century, 1368. Actually, some of the curators of the historians of a library used to say that it's not exactly true, because at that moment, it's symbolically true. At that moment, the king has decided or said that his private library was something so important for the history of a nation that he has to transmit it to his son as a king and not as his son. And so that's why we say that it's the beginning of a story, because it was a way to explain that a library is linked to the story of a nation, even if we don't speak about nation at that moment. But it was very important to say that. And that's why we pretend that the beginning of the story is with Charles V. But on the other hand, we don't have a library of Charles V as a whole, because actually it was not transmitted as the king wanted to do it. And so the library, his books, has to be disrupted all in the world or all in Europe. And so we don't have the library of Charles V, or we only have a part of the library of Charles V. And a large part of curators work on the possibility to reconstitute this library. And I have to say that we will have soon the opportunity to buy a book of the library of Charles V, and we hope to succeed in that very important acquisition. It's a way to say that we always think about the reconstitution of this very first library in our story. Then another very important moment to understand what is a national library in France, as everywhere in the world, is the invention of a legal deposit by François Ier. So François Ier and France, we are always very proud of this kind of story in France, really invented the legal deposit. So the decision linked, first of all, to as a way to check everything. It was not absolutely a liberal way of organization of organized things, but on the other hand, it was a very new way to organize a library, linked with the Renaissance period. So the thing that prevent books, prevent every kind of publishing is very important to the story of a country one more time. And so the legal deposit was also a way to say that we have to preserve everything for the future, to have the trace, the presence of every book printed in France.
So when you say legal deposit, does this mean that the all the works had to be given to
the library,
to the library,
as it is now? So it was the idea that every publishers and every editors have to give one, and at the beginning 4, 3, 2 books, everyone printed in France, to the library, to the National Library, and that's why it is a national library. And everywhere in the world, after 1537, every countries developed the same idea of this legal deposit.
well, like the Library of Congress does,
Like
yes.
the Library of Congress, like the British Library, and everywhere the National Library. What is the way to say that a national library is very different from any kind of library is this point, the fact that they have to deal with a legal deposit. And in France, we have a very, very large way to understand what is the legal deposit, from book to web and every digital native form of edition, and between newspapers, photographies, DVD, CDs, printed musical forms, everything, affiche,
Posters,
everything printed has to be given to the National Library. And so all along the time, from the 16th century, you can have the story of a library with different kinds of documents which are now inside the library. So it's the second thing that is very important to understand, to figure what is the National Library. The first thing is that it's very old. And so we have this link with all the story, so all the history of our country. And the second thing is that is very large. So we don't have only books, but all kinds of documents. And it's another way to understand the nature of a library. It's not only linked to the legal deposit, it's also linked to the history of the library itself, because as I said, it is linked to the king's story. So the library of a king, but also the treasure of the king before the creation of museums. And that's why we don't have only books, but also objects, as you have seen in the new museum. So a large range of objects of culture, artifacts, and also pictures, with the arrival in the 18th century of a very important collections of print gravure prints in the library. So we have these 3 kinds of documents, as we said: books and everything printed after books, objects and precious objects, and images from the print form of images. And so, yes, in the 17th century, the library came in the very place it already has, the Richelieu site. And then, because the story of the National Library is to increase definitely, and every moment, every day we have books which arrive. in the library, so we always need more place. So the story of a library is also a story of
Greedy for space.
absolutely struggle, and I can say. And so the story is going on with in the 19th century, in the 20th century, with the creation of a new site by François Mitterrand. And it's also a way to explain that we are always linked with power, with a national power. So to build another library. So you can see that the story in the Richelieu site has begun in 1721 till the end of the 20th century. It was okay. It was okay with a lot of extension of the building itself. But from the opening of the François Mitterrand site to now, so 30 years, the site is full. So the story is also a kind of acceleration of publishing, of creation, of everything. So 3 centuries on one side and 30 years in the other one. And so now I will speak about the reopening of Richelieu, but now we are working on a new site in Amiens. So the story is continuing. As a site is finished, we have to build another one each time.
Great.
It's a way to.
I have a wonderful living room that could use more decoration. So let's look at the Richelieu.
Yes. So Richelieu, it's a lot of things because it was our historical site. So it was really important for us to renovate it because it's our history, but also because it's a wonderful, wonderful place. It's a palace. It's really a palace because it was the place of Richelieu, the prime minister in the 17th century, to restore. And it's a wonderful place, really, with a decor extraordinary. It was important because it was a way to explain what is the library, to have a place in the very center of Paris, open to everyone, because before this site was reserved to researchers. Researchers have always now their place, specific reading room, and they are everywhere in the National Library, the only one who can have access to the collections, to the heritage collections. But from the beginning of the story, because it's a national library, because it's the history of everyone, the National Library has this idea of opening. It was very little, and at the end, it began to be wider and wider. And it was important to say that this historical site, which is so important for the library itself, which is so beautiful, has to be open to everyone. And it's this story that we explain with the restoration of the site. And another very important thing is that for the very first time, we have the possibility not only to speak about the library, even in French, if it's easier for me in French, but we don't have to explain it. We have a possibility to show it. And even if we are very obviously linked to the written civilization, it's really important to have a possibility to show it. I just give you one example. So I said about the diversity. I spoke about the diversity of our collections, the fact that we have all kinds of artifacts and documents from the ancient world to the very new production. And I always speak about that. And I always speak that we have not only books, but everything. I can say just everything, even if it's not true, because we don't have paintings, but we have almost everything. But at the end, I can say that no one print this reality in his mind, or maybe no one want to think that it's true. But I think that it's not the reality. The reality is that it's just that it's incredible. And so you don't remember that. And so for the very first time, the people just see it. And even if it's a friend of an ami,
a friend
of me,
friend, yes, a friend, yes, with a friend.
Someone I know very well, someone who has the habit to hear me saying, you know, we have everything. When they came for the very first time in the museum, they all say to me, but you have this?
Yeah.
And it's not only books, but it's just incredible. And so it was for me something very incredible for me also, because I said, but I said it to you so many times. Yes, but but it's not true. It's really the collections of the library. Yes, it is. You know, it's a museum. You know what is a museum? The museum is the way. And so I really think that for the library, it is something very new, because
yes,
before that, it was just impossible to see what is the library.
Well, I think what they should put a mantra on top of the library, one of your quotations, which is, a library is just not a space of the printed word, because that reflects what the space is. And I think we should go through your slideshow and show everybody the most beautiful images, and then you and I can have our conversation about this space. Also, the other amazing thing about this space is it's free. So you can walk in, you know, when it's raining and you don't know where to go in Paris and you want to find a toilet, excuse me. This place will welcome you.
It's really right.
Yeah. So it's like an old fashioned American library. And you just don't find spaces like that in Paris that you can just walk into free, except maybe churches. But this is like a secular church. So go ahead. We're going to move forward with some of these things. Before and after. Look at this. Don't you want to go there like right now? Oh, tell us a little bit about this room. If you can believe it, I'm going to say something. I'm going to interview. The library has more Greek vases, ancient Greek vases, than any other place in Paris than the Louvre. So go ahead. Over to you. It's true. Yeah. Maybe you told me that.
And yes, and this is due to a collectioner, a private collectioner, le Duc de Luynes, who was a researcher, who was an archaeologist, who used to work in the library, at the library, and so who decided to give to the library all his collection, which was really amazing. And this is why there is so many antiquities in the library. And his decision, so it was in the 19th century, so the Louvre existed already. But he decided to give to the library because the library were the place to study. And that's why he made this decision. And the collection is really linked to this question of studying, of transmission. And this is something very important, I think. It's the difference between a museum and a library. A museum is the place where curators decided to choose some artifacts as a proof of an art story. A library is the place where you can find everything, where you can find the things as they are created, and not as the curators has decided to explain you what is important or not important. So there is this idea, very interesting, I think, in libraries, in all libraries, that of course curators are specialists and can help you to understand things. But the idea is really to preserve everything and to give the other, to give them the possibility to find where in a place what they need, and not to decide for them. And so I really think that the Duc de Luynes has this idea of research, of studies, and to express is linked with a place where it's possible to walk for ourselves. So that's why, and so the donation was linked to the fact that it will be shown to everyone,
Yes,
as it is in this place, in
so
this room.
what else do we have here? So this is
So
a
this,
difficult room to understand from this, but just tell us briefly what we're seeing.
so it's all these collections are linked to a department. The organization of collections is as any heritage institution organized by different kind of specialities, and one of them is the Département des monnaies et médailles et antiques. So
medals and coins
yes, and antiquities. So it's one more time linked to the Cabinet du Roi, so to the collections of the king, and we will see in another room, and to the presence of objects,
yes,
but also medals. And so this room is the previous reading room for this department, and we took the decision to open it to everyone because it was in the middle of the museum. So it was very difficult to have a reading room in the middle of the museum. So we decided to transform it as a room of a museum. And so a way to understand what is a cabinet des monnaies et médailles with this furnitures, what are médaillés, I don't know the English word, so the place where you are.
I don't know if there is an English word, but cabinet for your coins and medals. Yes.
And this one is the very first place for this collection. So it is the Cabinet du Roi. Donc,
yes.
Louis XV, and with some wonderful paintings from Boucher, Van Loo,
yes, you do.
Latour.
I'm going to say this. This is off the record. You don't have to go to the Louvre to see Boucher. You can.
Thank you. No, the Louvre is so important place.
Yes.
But it's so well known and it's so big. So you have the possibility to come to the National
Library. And it's closed on
Library.
Tuesdays, and the Bibliothèque nationale is open on Tuesdays, so it's great.
Yes, absolutely.
This is the great room for me.
And so this one is the Palais de Mazarin. So this gallery was built by Mazarin to show his collection or to organize his collection with a wonderful
ceiling, the ceiling paintings. Yes, the murals on the side. Yes,
a fresco by Romanelli, so very important Italian painters, and it's absolutely wonderful. So it's in itself something incredible to see. And inside this gallery, we decided to show all the other collections, because the first part of the museum was very different, but existed before. This part is absolutely new, and it's where you can see this diversity of collections. It begins with Middle Ages, and goes to the 21st century. And so you have a kind of story, a cultural history of France, but also of France with its relations with everywhere in the world. And you are meeting all important writers, all important painters, and the collections from the Saint-Denis, le Trésor de Saint-Denis, le Trésor de la Sainte-Chapelle. So you have some manuscripts from Middle Ages to manuscript de Proust, or la correspondance, writings between George Sand et Chopin, or Musset, and photographies,
Well, I think
all kinds of
yes,
artifacts.
and I think, Laurence, you have a not this one. Let's go to the next one. Oh, this one.
No,
This is
yes,
this is one of the most beautiful rooms in
Yes.
all of Paris. So if you haven't been, who's been to this well, less than half of
so bad.
half. Well, we've got a great the people who haven't been to this place yet, you've got a great adventure ahead of you, because this is one of the most beautiful rooms in all of Paris. But I think there's another one. Yeah, this shows you some of the treasures. Tell us a little bit about some of these incredible treasures.
So we can choose. So we have Marcel Proust. It was
Who did a lot of
Engel.
rewriting,
Yes.
if you notice here. Yes, for those of you who are writers here, don't be in despair. You know, this was Proust.
Yes, and you can show
It's true.
you can show the picture in the chronique, because
This is a real head of a president. I call you president, don't they?
Yes.
See, she's putting me to work. Yeah, here we go. This is the publication by the library. If you don't belong to the library and you don't get this publication, you're missing out. You can put this on your coffee table and pretend you're a real intellectual, you know. I mean, who doesn't want Proust on a coffee table? So go ahead.
So I wanted to just to show another manuscript of Proust, because it's so. You take it.
It's in the beginning of the book.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
You know it better than me.
Well, you put me to work, Laurence. I'm doing my job too. Look
Yes,
at
because
yeah.
this one is really
Yeah.
incredible.
How many writers do we have in this room? Okay, all right. Doesn't this make you feel good? I mean, this was Proust. Makes me feel good. I ought to put this up on my while I'm writing every day.
But manuscripts are something really incredible. One more time, I think it's something very important with the National Library, because it's just incredible. It's true, but we can't find it true immediately. So we know that we have a lot of manuscripts, obviously manuscripts before the printed books, but also manuscripts from writers. And this is linked to, it's less difficult with Victor Hugo, because Victor Hugo is the one who has decided to give his manuscripts and his drafts to the library. It was a decision made by himself, and so it was not bought. It was just given by Victor Hugo himself. And from that moment, other writers decided to do the same. So it was very important for us to have this first gift, very important. And so we have Notre-Dame de Paris, and we have Les Misérables, and we have everything.
Yeah, to go to the library and to see Victor Hugo's own handwriting is quite extraordinary.
It is extraordinary, and it's incredible. So when you say you can see the manuscript of Victor Hugo, and so the curator said the manuscript autograph by Victor Hugo, to precise that it's really from his hand. And then, exactly as the museum, people said, but it is by Victor Hugo? You mean that he wrote this? And yes, it is a manuscript autograph from Victor Hugo, or from Proust, and from all of a large range of writers. So I think it's something very wonderful because it's incredible, and to have things incredible in front of you, it's something incredible.
Well, it's wonderful. It's, if you're a writer, to go to this space, you really feel as if you're like like that expression, a kid in a candy store, because you go from one to the other, and you suddenly see all of these people who you read in, that paperback that you had to read when you were in school, the Pascal's Pensées. There he is. Pascal is in
Yes.
his own handwriting. And then to see Simone de Beauvoir, and by the way, Simone de Beauvoir did not rewrite. She wrote in perfect script, and she never went over it. She never corrected her. She's very depressing. I wouldn't put her up because she's too. But to see them, it's just, it blows your mind to see the wealth of the manuscripts that are there. Casanova's memoirs,
Yes.
Oh yeah, there they are.
There is
And he
one.
wrote pretty cleanly too.
Yes.
He wrote clean, yeah.
And we have also musical manuscripts. And it's interesting to have the difference between Mozart, Don Giovanni. So it's exactly like in the movie. He just writes.
Yeah, he didn't edit. Yeah, it just
Yes.
came out like that.
And when you are looking at a manuscript of Beethoven, it's just totally different. And in all kind of creation, it's the same. So here you have Notre Dame de Paris one more time.
Yeah.
And if we come back to the other one, you have a different kind of collection. So Le Psautier de Saint-Louis, this kind of very important manuscript.
Well, tell what is that? That's a medieval manuscript.
Yes.
That, and you have a lot of,
Enluminé, yes. Very important one, very precious one, because it's the one of Saint-Louis. And wonderful. We had an exhibition in the library, which was called Quand la peinture était dans les livres, when painting was in books. It's just incredible. It's wonderful and incredible. But we have also the Trône de Dagobert. So we have the story of France. We have the Trône de Dagobert. We have a chess
set
of Charlemagne. We have the Corps de Roland. So everything we learned in our schools books is here, and it's one more time amazing and wonderful. But we also have this kind of things. So globe vert is very important for you because it's the globe where the world America was printed for the very first time. Everything is like this.
Well, I'm convinced that this library, which is an American library, which doesn't have the same, I'm sure, Alice, you can find extraordinary manuscripts in somewhere in your inventories and but you could probably do some wonderful liaison with the library, this library, and just find wonderful American artifacts or bits of creativity in your wonderful space.
Yes. Maybe your libraries are working together all along in all the world, because the first mission of the National Library is to preserve everything, as I said, but also to organize it. It's the work of all librarians to have a lot of things like here. And if you don't organize it, it's just impossible to give it accessible to people. So the very specialty of curators in libraries is the science of organization of knowledge. And if you don't organize things in the same way in France, in the United States, in Great Britain, and everywhere, it becomes difficult to work together. So we are all working together to make sure we organize things in the same way. So absolutely, we are working with libraries.
Yes. Well, if I could intervene, because I know we don't have very much time and we want to turn things over to the audience, if you would permit me. I got to go to the library on the night of the inauguration. I got one of those magical invitations where the prime minister was there saying "Vive la France," etc. And I was with all of the crème de la crème of the French intelligentsia was there, and I was so excited by this, even though I'm supposed to be writing this book on how to fall in love with the Louvre. I thought I've got to find a way to write this for the New York Times because, as you said, everybody got so excited. And so I wrote this sentence and I'm stunned it got past the editors. The cultural elite here is not given to displays of emotion. Even smiling can be difficult for some of them. But upon seeing the array of beloved works up close and personal, they gushed. And it really was that. It really was. Here you have all these fancy French people. Like there's the guy who's the new head of the Orsay Museum. He's there with his iPhone taking pictures of all the cameos. And, this other guy, this famous art historian saying, there's a feeling of the marvelous now. You have to come and look at this little, this Babylonian object here. This guy was the former head of Arte saying crazy, crazy. So it truly is a place where you get excited. Plus, there's a Rose Bakery right downstairs, so you can have a little snack if you want. And that's the magic of this place, is that you can't go in and not feel excited. And that's what you've done, which is quite wonderful. May I ask you one question, though, before we turn it over to the audience? There seems to be a difference between the American attitude towards libraries and the French attitude towards libraries. When I first met you, you started telling me a little bit about this, that Americans have a very different formation, education when they're young with libraries than the French, and just how different the sensibility is between the two countries when it comes to what is a library.
Yes, I discovered that for American, it's obvious that a library is important. By contrast, what I discovered that at that moment is that for French people, it's not. So it's just incredible because we always present ourselves as the country of books, of literature, of intellectual life, but actually for the elite, as we say, the important thing is the museum. So, and the libraries, maybe because it's something natural, I don't know, because I think that Cara always said it to me, and I think it's true for French people, the school is the place recognized as the important thing for the transmission and for the link between generations. And in the United States, this symbolic institution is maybe more the library than the school itself.
Because is it that children go to libraries in America and they don't go to libraries in France in the same way?
I don't know. I don't know, but it's just like this. We can tell that in the United States, for everyone, and I mean for everyone, for the one who want to show that they are interested in the cultural affairs or in, and to express their wants to give back to the country what they received from it. The library is a natural place to express it.
Maybe even more than a museum.
Maybe, yeah, or as a museum. And in France, there is really a difference between the museum and the library. So maybe that's why we wanted to have a museum also.
So maybe the French were really responding to your place because it wasn't a library, because it was a museum.
It was decided before me.
Well, I must turn it over to all of you, but let me ask you this. You're showing all of these manuscripts, but don't you have to rotate them out and change them so that they don't get destroyed?
Yes, so it's a huge rule. So when we put a manuscript or any paper artifacts in the museum, we have to, for 3 months,
3 months.
or for 4 months, we have to keep it back and to protect it for 4 years.
So do you have enough pages of Proust so that you
Yes,
can
absolutely.
keep rotating
The
them?
responsible for manuscripts in the library, which is someone very serious, and we want to one time said to me, we have these armoires pleines.
We have full armoires,
full
yes.
armoires of
of
Proust,
Proust.
and
Great.
so it's possible.
So you can all go see, all of you writers can go see Proust and feel good about your writing. Yeah. Is this a good time to turn it over to?
Yes, can we have a big round of applause, please?
Oh, please, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's go. We'll just end with this is the bakery that Elaine was so excited about, and we had to go back and forth
Actually,
5 times.
but wait, but the first,
is a garden.
oh, there's a great garden too. But the first Rose Bakery, I want all of you to know, is on the Rue des Martyrs, and they're actually, which is my neighborhood, yeah. But there actually is a real Rose. I don't know if you know this, but she really exists, and she's a very nice person. And yeah, so there's a lovely little, you want to get a scone in Paris, you go there. But there's also this wonderful garden and that evokes paper, right? Isn't this right? Tell us
Yes,
a little bit just about the
absolutely.
garden.
So it was created by Gilles Clément, who is jardinier,
Gardener,
very important and well-known French jardinier. And so he expressed three important things in his project. The first one is that he goes where there was plein terre. I don't know.
Planetarium.
The real la terre.
Dirt where there's soil. Yes, where there's, yes.
From the 17th century, because at the beginning of the site, there was a garden here.
Oh my
for the
gosh.
palace of
Yeah.
Richelieu. So where you see it's green, it's where there was, it was never built on
wow.
that places. So it was memories of a story. The second memory is the stones here and here, all stones in the soil
On the ground.
on the ground is made from materials which are on the facade. So it's a way, one more time, to express the story of a site. And the last thing is that all vegetables are vegetables which are used for make papers. So
right,
papyrifère. So
yeah, like papyrus and things like that.
papyrus.
So if any of you are gardeners, you really should go and visit this place. Yeah. Questions?
Okay, over to you. One more big round of applause, please.
Oh, yeah.
We have to show Laurence that all the stereotypes of Americans that we're very enthusiastic are true. So we keep that.
Yeah, and also that everybody came out tonight with the strike. I think it's great. I also think it's great. Look at there's more women than men who are, which shows that there are more women than men. Excuse me, that show that we correct. You said it. I didn't.
Okay, so who has a question? Oh, I'll just go here first.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really curious about the new site in Amiens, which I don't know what point the annonce and all of that are out, but can you tell us whether it's planned to be just a storage facility or whether there will also be a public space and reading rooms?
No, it will be mainly a storage building. So there will be a little reading room, but really very little. So just for a few researchers, and to have a possibility also to welcome a school class or something like that. But we are working a lot with all cultural institutions in Amiens to have a cultural program, but outside the hors les murs, as we say in French.
Thank you.
Bonjour, merci. Vous travaillez avec des équipes d'archivistes? Et est-ce qu'elles sont grandes ou pas grandes?
So the library is not only the oldest institution; it's also the one who cost the most to the ministry, and it is mainly because of the size of the team. So we are more than 2,000 in the library. So not only archivists, and it's not archivists, it's curators. Ce ne sont pas des archivistes, c'est des conservateurs qui sont très nombreux. Mais c'est all kind of workers, not only curators, but more than 2,000 people in the team. Because of the size of the collections, because of the size of reading rooms, we have more than 4,000 seats to welcome readers and everything. So it's a very important thing.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that history with us. I know you mentioned there were certain works that you have your eye on acquiring. I would just love to know what's on your wish list for future expositions, or what would you love to see, shown with shared with the public at the library?
So I already know what will be the next exhibitions, but what we are working on is, I just spoke with you, Elaine, about that. It's the way to explain what is the library. So it's not only choose a good project, but also to have a possibility to express this identity of a library. The museum is the best way to explain what is universalism and encyclopedism, which are the two main important words to explain the collections. But the idea now is to try to have each year literature exhibition, each year photography exhibitions, because the collections of photographies are really very important, because photography enters the collections from the beginning of the story of the photography, from the mid-19th century, and then to try to have thematic exhibitions which could help people to understand the actual world. So the next exhibition is about the invention of printing.
I want to be there.
And another one in Richelieu it's on Degas. Degas, when Degas has worked on all kinds of techniques, but the paintings, so photographies, writings, and prints.
If I could just go further about the question was, if I could pose it a bit larger, it was also about your future plans for the museum, including not just exhibitions but acquisitions. I mean, what are the sorts of works that you have your eye on that you'd like to acquire or bring into the museum?
Sorry. So acquisition, we can't. It's impossible to organize it, because it's when there is something to buy. And so, as I said, the next project is a book from the library of Charles V, and another one which is now quite finished is the un fond, a group of manuscripts and archives and documents from Offenbach, from Jacques Offenbach. But it arises because it's now possible to buy it. Recent acquisition is two monotypes from Degas, and we will have a pleasure to show it just now, but it was not linked with the exhibition. It's just because it was to buy now. So to buy, yes.
Thank you. More questions possibly in the room? Oh, yes. Okay. Two.
Thank you. I know that museums have, as part of their collections, many items which are in storage that we don't see. Can you give us some idea of what the percentage of your collections are actually available to be seen by the public? I mean, your collection just sounds enormous, and I can't imagine that we're seeing just a little bit of it.
Yes, it is a little bit. So it's 900 documents in the library, and we say that we have 40 million documents, but actually I don't know exactly how many we have, because there are so many ways to count documents, but I'm not sure it's so important. So everything is available for researchers. A large range of documents are available online with Gallica. So we have now 10 million documents available online, so digitized, and around 1,000 documents in the museum. And each year, around 10 exhibitions, mainly organized with our collections. So it's possible to see a lot. What is important with the museum is that you have a global view of the collections. So this one is really very new. And but because of the fragility of documents, you will have the possibility to come 3 times each year to see different documents. And so you have to come more than one time.
That's well, there is something organic and something very lively and living about this space, which is what makes it so magical. So if you haven't visited yet, I just told somebody today who was going to the Louvre, I said, you could go to the Louvre, but afterwards, just go, your hotel is right, just walk down the street, your hotel's right next door, and see this very magical space that's a bite-sized Louvre.
Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. I will have you on the library.
Can I join? Can I be a stagiaire? I'll be your, can I be an older stagiaire, like Robert De Niro in that movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Laurence, we have a question on Zoom from Natalie Hobbs. Thank you to our Zoom audience. We had 80 people at one point during the height of your discussion. Natalie is curious about the question of restitution. So she says that, other museums and other organizations like the British Museum is facing questions of returning objects. Have you faced this particular question? And she's in the blue light.
Okay. So as every heritage institution, we are to deal, if I can use this word, with this very important question, and mainly because, as I said, the collections of the library is the result of the history of a nation. So obviously the history of peaceful relationships, but also with wars and colonization and everything. So actually, we already had to accept the fact that documents should have to go back to their countries. What is interesting, so we have a very interesting story, if I can say it, with Korea, a manuscript from Korea, and another one very interesting with Mexico. But these two situations are not really linked with what we are speaking about with restitution, because it was two countries which were not previous colonies from France. So it's another story, and I think that today we can say that these documents were not arrived in the collections in an illegal way, but it was important for these countries. So we had to organize things, and so it's one part of the story. The other one is that it's really very interesting to work on this question for all reasons you can imagine. And so we have a we work on it a lot. We have some digital work with other countries to share what we call the patrimoine partagé, so share heritage online. To explain the story of these collections, we are sometimes shared between different countries, France and other countries. And we are working a lot about the story, the provenance, the origin of the collections, to make sure that these collections are entered the collection in a good way or not in a good way, and to try to explain it and to work on it with the specialists and the scientists from these countries. The most important thing is certainly to work on it together. But so we are confronted to these questions as everyone.